Hey everyone, in today's video, I want to tell you how you can avoid what I think is the biggest Social Security mistake. Now, this is something that can cost you thousands of dollars, but almost everyone makes this mistake and it is so avoidable. In fact, it'll only take you about 10 minutes to make sure you aren't one of the ones who will miss out on benefits to you and your family by making this mistake. But before we get to that, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit that notifications bell if you haven't already. There are some big changes coming to Social Security in the days ahead, and I plan to cover those right here on this channel. So if you're subscribed, you're going to know what's happening as soon as I release a new video. And also, don't leave without getting your free copy of my Social Security cheat sheet. It's completely free, and it's packed with information that I've distilled from thousands of pages on the Social Security Administration website. So when we're talking about big mistakes, how do you feel about one that could cost you more than $80,000? I can tell you that I don't want anything to do with a mistake of that magnitude, and most of the people I know who are planning for their retirement want to stay as far away from that as they can as well. But this is a mistake that is happening all the time. Now, I'm sure you're curious about what this mistake is, so let's get right into it. It's not checking and fixing mistakes in your earnings record. Very few people actually check their earnings record because they assume it's right. But let me tell you, I've seen lots of mistakes in earnings records over the years. I've seen several cases where someone worked at a company for 30 years and right in the middle of the earnings history, there were no earnings reported. These mistakes are much more common than you may think. So for proof, you can look at the Social Security Administration's earnings suspense file. That's where earnings go that they can't match up to an individual. Since the inception of Social Security, there's been a total of $1.2 trillion in wages that could not be matched to an individual. And so they were just added to the earnings suspense file. And in tax year 2012 alone, the Social Security Administration reported $71 billion in earnings added to the file. So how do these earnings record mistakes happen? Well, most of these mistakes are not actually the fault of the Social Security Administration. A lot of these mismatches are due to employer reporting errors or name changes like from a marriage, or the outright fraudulent use of Social Security numbers from illegal immigrants using stolen Social Security numbers to report wages. But thankfully, the Social Security Administration does have a good system for figuring these mistakes out and assigning the earnings to the correct records. But nearly half of the mismatches are never corrected. So please hear me. It is crucial that you check your earnings on an annual basis. If your Social Security earnings have been recorded incorrectly or worse, not at all, it could make a big difference in your benefit amount. So how much difference could it make? Well, let me show you two examples of just how much your benefit can be reduced due to missing earnings. But to really understand this, you got to understand the first two steps in the benefit calculation. This is important, so stick with me for just a minute as we cover these basics. Step one is to calculate your averaged index monthly earnings, or what's commonly referred to as AIM. And then in step two, you simply add that AIM to the benefits formula. So let's cover each of these steps in just a little deeper detail so the conversation on missing earnings is going to make more sense. To calculate the averaged index monthly earnings, the Social Security Administration will inflate all of your historical earnings to account for economy-wide wage inflation. That's to bring everything up to today's level. They do this on your earnings through age 59. Everything at 60 or later is not inflated, but just used in the calculation at face value. Once they have all of your earnings, they take out the highest 35 earnings, sum them up, and then to get the average expressed on a monthly basis, they divide that sum by 420, which is simply the number of months in 35 years. Once this step has been completed, the administration has an accurate count on your earnings history, and it's time to put your individual average earnings through the formula. Now, it's important to note that the formula which is used is the formula in place the year you turn 62 or the year you become disabled or die if either of those happen before 62. So let's go through a quick example of how your average earnings go through the formula. This formula is made up of two numbers which are often called bin points. The average earnings up to the first bin point are multiplied by 90%. Average earnings between the first and second bin point are multiplied by 32%. And then anything that's over the second bin point is multiplied by 15%. And for this example, let's assume that your average monthly earnings came up to $7,000. Once you run this through the formula and sum up the results of each band, you have a total of $2,646. That is your primary insurance amount, also referred to as your PIA. This is the amount that you can receive at your full retirement age, but it's also the amount that all the auxiliary benefits are keyed off of, like spousal benefits, survivor benefits, and children's benefits. So this number is really important. And the determination of this number goes back to your specific earnings. So if your earnings are off, this number will be wrong, and you don't want that. Let me show you an example of how missing earnings can affect your lifetime benefit payments. I calculated the benefits of an individual who earned exactly the national average wage index for 35 years. Now, I could have used much higher earnings and exaggerated the results here, but I wanted to keep this in line with the average. Then I calculated what would happen if the individual had a mistake where the first year was missing, then the first 2 years, then the first 3 years, the first 4 years, and then the first 5 years of earnings were missing. I calculated the total cumulative benefit paid out over a 20-year retirement and assumed that benefits would increase by 2% annually. So here were the results. If the first year of earnings were missing, that would be about $11,000 in benefits that wouldn't be paid over the 20-year retirement. For 2 years, that increases to just over $20,000. At 3 years, that's just over $33,000. At 4 years, that mistake cost $44,000. And for missing 5 years, it's a cut of just over $55,000. Now, I don't think anyone would disagree that $55,000 is a lot of money, especially when you consider that it was from a mistake that was so easy to avoid. But it actually gets worse. Remember the bottom number from that benefit calculation, the PIA that controls not only how much in benefit someone receives at their full retirement age, but also controls the amount of spousal benefits that are paid? Well, let's take this example a step further and assume you have a spouse who will be collecting their entire benefit from a spousal benefit. Then the numbers change because not only is your number lower, theirs will be lower as well. Now, for missing the first year of earnings, it's going to cost nearly $17,000 in lifetime benefits. At 2 years, it's $33,000. At 3 years, it's right at $50,000. If the first 4 years were missed, it would cost nearly $67,000. And if you had a mistake where the first 5 years of earnings were missed, it would cost just over $83,000. Again, it's all from a mistake that could have been avoided with just a few minutes of work. So I don't want you to let another day go by without checking your earnings record. These earnings should be updated for the prior year by the middle of the year, so just know there is a little lag. So here's what you need to do to check yours. Just go to your My SSA account and click on the tab that says View Earnings History. Now, the layout of the website may have changed since this screenshot, but I can tell you it's still going to be on the first page somewhere. Once you have your earnings history pulled up, just go down the numbers and make sure you don't see anything that immediately stands out. Pay special attention to the years where you may have changed jobs, had a buyout at your company, or got married and changed your name. Those are the most likely culprits for seeing a mistake in your earnings record. If nothing stands out immediately, go back and look at the amounts. A mistake isn't always going to be a year of no earnings recorded. There could be earnings recorded in the wrong amount due to a simple clerical error. So what happens if your earnings history isn't right? Well, if there's a mistake, here's how you go about correcting it. I'm going to put a link to this in the description. There is a Social Security publication that discusses this, but here's the quick summary. First, you want to gather your proof of income. This could be from tax returns, W-2s, 1099s, and there's a few other documents you could use as well. But if you can't find these, and it could be the case if this has been from years past, don't let the Social Security Administration tell you that there's nothing that can be done. In their manual, they plainly state that an oral or written statement from the employer will serve as evidence of wages. Now, you want to let them guide you here, but don't be afraid to show them their own rules, which I'm going to link up in the description. When you're correcting the earnings record, they may have you fill out an SSA 7008, which is their form they use for this, or they may do it for you. Just once you get your proof of income, call the main office or call your local office, and they're going to walk you through what you need to do next. Whatever you do, Don't turn a blind eye to your earnings record and assume everything is fine. Make sure today so you and your family will get all the benefits that you have coming. Thanks for watching.